Hello, Austintown, and welcome to a very special episode of the Veterans and Military News that we do on Austintown Community Television. Today, I have two very special guests who are very familiar, I think, to those of you in the military and a lot of you in Austintown who have seen our show before. But today, we're going to talk about a special issue, an issue that is so important to everyone in the United States, not just here in Austintown. But may I introduce our guest? To my right is, now, do I have to say former Sergeant First Class?
Sure.
Okay. Former Sergeant First Class, Susan Krawcheck. Now, I had to say that in particular because I thought it was three syllables, Krawcheck. But Susan was a 25-year veteran of the military, and she served for a while, a long time actually, in the Middle East. But now she's here as the executive director and service officer for the Mahoney County Veterans Service Commission. And in that particular position that she has, she is going to be the big sponsor of what's going to be happening here in Austintown. And to my far right is a gentleman, I use that word very loosely, but a good friend to all of us here in Austintown. I just got very, very sad because I found out he came from Canfield. But he's been doing all the work over here in Austintown. But I mean, it's really Leo Conley. Now, for those of you who don't know Leo was the past commander of the District 7 of the Disabled Veterans for the Department of Ohio. He was the past commissioner for the Mahoney County Veterans Services. He served in Vietnam through 1967 and 68, and he came out highly decorated for valor. Actually, about 23 awards. I always thought that maybe 23 medals on a uniform and your pants would have fallen down or something. But congratulations to both of you. I'm very, very impressed to be here with both of you because of the success that you have done in the past and the service to our country, but more importantly now in what's going on. Because today we're going to do something that should have been done years and years ago. We're going to talk about a ceremony that's coming up to honor the women veterans, those who served in the military throughout the history of the United States. And I was just informed today that this really, what we're going to be doing in Austintown, is only the second one in the nation.
That's correct.
And that is fantastic. And what it is the name of the bridge going over Route 11 on Mahoning Avenue is going to be called the Women's Veterans Memorial Bridge. Now, these are the two individuals that were the mainstay to get this thing going. But it always starts with somebody with, time on his hands. No, actually,
his hands.
But that's not true. We're very proud in Austintown about all the services, and we have all the veterans groups over here. And it's very, very active in a situation where it is not active as much all over the country. Well, Leo has always been part of that, and we've known him for years. And he comes up with these great ideas. So one day he sat around. We're not going to start from his birth, but you came up. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ken, yourself and the Austintown High School and the Austintown family for inviting Susan and I here to be able to share this with you. But ever since I come home from the military in '68 and I got out of the Army, I had more of a compassion of all about respect. You got to keep in mind, if I had to hit the reset button and go back to when the military started with us, you were forced to go to the military, you were forced to sign up. If not, you went to penitentiary. Then you come home and there was no respect. I mean, nobody welcomed you, nobody respected the mission that you were on. And so if I took that mindset, and through the years I thought, rather than be part of the problem, be part of the solution. So I thought part of the solution is getting the word out there, educating people. I found out all it was the people in the Valley and the people in the United States just weren't educated. Once they learned what our mission was and what we did, the respect level started moving from 1968 till today, which is phenomenal. I mean, I've known, like, even if I stop at Dunkin' Donuts, someone will pick my check up if they see something military on me. Well, I was privy to a dedication in Warren, which is the first women's veteran bridge that was dedicated by a guy named Bob Marino, did all the work. So I went to that ceremony, and I was very impressed. And it was like tattooed in the back of my mind. And I said to, I went up to see Susan, and she's got a compassion for veterans. As you can see, not only her military life, her community is all about veterans. She served both of them. So her and I put our heads together and said, is this doable? So I went to Joe Schiavone, talked to Joe, and Joe was all for it. The sad thing was he was towards the end of his term limits.
Yep.
So I happened to be doing the colors at a baseball game up in Boardman. It was an international one. And I did the colors, and John Bashiri was there, and Joe, and Michelle Hagan, and we got a chance to talk about it. And he said, well, I'll do the bill. So we did the bill. I went down and testified, and so history was made. We get a chance to finally, Susan and our dream, we took a hypothetical, and it become reality. And it's a long overdue process. Now,
Well, I'll tell you what, let me go just in case you didn't hear the names, okay? We're talking about Senator Joe Schiavone, our state representatives, Michelle Hagan and John Bocheri. The situation is that this is over and on ODOT property.
Exactly.
Ohio Department of Transportation. So for that to be passed, it had to be passed through the House and the Senate and has the okay by the governor, and then they give the okay to ODOT, and that's what happens. And it takes a while to get that done.
And actually, you're quite right. I got quite an education out of it because, first of all, it was a no-brainer because Michelle Lepore Hagan, John Bashiri, and Joe Schiavone, they're all about veterans. There was times I go into functions, they'll come and ask me, what can we do? And anywhere else, you got to ask them when you want something. So they were very supportive in what I was doing. John and Michelle Lepore got right on it, got the bill in, and we kind of followed it through. John and Michelle asked me if I would go down and testify, and I did. I went down and testified, and knock on wood, December 22nd, the governor loved it. He signed it. And as you know, it takes 90 days after it's signed, which was March 23rd was our date, which Susan and I thought April 16th would be the perfect time to unveil it. But it's kind of like I'm like a kid in the candy store when I heard it pass.
Well, let me say this. This is not a paid political announcement, but they did an excellent job. And that is what it's all about. It's cooperation.
Without question.
I mean, it worked out so well, and for such a good project. What a fantastic project.
And the beauty thing, Ken, all of us, Susan, myself, Bashiri, and Michelle, and Senator Schiavone, we were all on the same page. We were all after this mission, and we all had a passion. I mean, I'm a firm believer. I don't know what they get paid. They would have done this for free. Mm-hmm. Susan would have done it for free because it's a passion with us. It's not anybody says, well, I have to go write this or I have to be down there to testify. They wanted to do it, and that was the beauty part of this whole thing. I mean, it's easy for me to stand up and says, well, Susan and I come up with the idea. They did the hard work. All we did was follow it through.
I was a state rep, and when you're talking about the military, the backing becomes so strong that it's unbelievable. Well, anyway, before we go into the history of things, since we're going to do a little history lesson here, I'm an educator too, so I have to listen to my education. We're going to talk about the ceremony itself. Okay, the okay came from ODOT. The bridge is going to be named the Women's Veterans Memorial Bridge. There will be a sign up there. But the ceremony itself, honoring this particular episode and this particular action, is going to happen on Monday, April the 9th?
16th.
16th. I got this wrong over here. That's RSVP. Okay, it's the 16th. Now that, on that particular day, now let's talk about that. It's going to be where?
At the Austintown Senior Center,
Okay.
110 Westchester Drive. And, excuse me, the ceremony starts at 10 o'clock, and we hope to have a huge crowd there for this epic moment to honor women veterans. As Leo mentioned, it started back in 1775, and they actually broke the groundwork for us to join the military and protect this great country that we have and be able to do what we're sitting here doing today.
Well, this is it now. We're going to educate you in a second about women in the military. But we're looking for those of you who have the time and the opportunity to be with us, whether you are veterans or not. Come on and join us. That is Monday, April the 16th. That's coming up at 10 a.m. at the Senior Center. And the ceremony will start immediately at 10 o'clock. The ceremony is not going to be overly long, but it's going to be very, very important. So we ask you to, now, do we need RSVPs from individuals or maybe groups that are coming?
I only have some invitations sent out to some representatives and some local personnel,
Okay.
so the public can show up. They don't need to call.
If you're famous, no, I'm just kidding. If you expect to be introduced, you better let us know who's coming in. But the thing is, it's open to everybody.
Right.
So, and enjoy yourself. Come on in and be proud. Those of you, especially the women who are in the military, come on and join us. This is your honor. That we're doing this.
And Ken, I just want to add some of the good treats. We're going to have coffee and cake there. We were going to do the finger
Leo's
food.
didn't make the cake. He's buying it.
No, I didn't.
Now
I was
everybody will
thinking
come.
about
Yeah.
making it, and we were thinking about finger food. And if you got an invitation that says that on it, we apologize. We decided to just go with the cake and the coffee. But what I want to stress is, even if you weren't in the military, if you knew a woman that was in the military, somebody that had made that sacrifice. And a lot of times I pause with that because I want you to stop and think, like the young lady sitting next to me, a single mother, did the YSU thing, did 25 years in the military, did 2 years combat tour in Iraq, combat. And I might add, with a little pride, her and I were both in the 1st Infantry, which was called the Bloody Red One. So I'm kind of saying, look, even if you have a neighbor, if you know anybody, this is the time. Because I have people always come up and tell me, what can I do to help? Come out and show them your appreciation. I'm praying that my biggest problem is when we go there that morning, there's standing room only. Because, of course, then again, it won't surprise me because that's Austintown. Austintown is so veteran friendly, it's unbelievable. And there's nowhere in any corner of Austintown that you doesn't see the outpouring of love for us veterans. And I couldn't think of a better place, even though I live in Boardman, and I've lived over in Austintown for many years. This is, you guys over here have, it's phenomenal. The love, I mean, it's just amazing.
Well, let me do something politically sound here. Mahoney County universally honors veterans. It really
Right.
does. We just happen to have in Austintown representatives from each of the veterans organizations.
Here,
I mean, and they're very active. But certainly we invite all our friends from the Mahoney County and Trumbull County, the Tri-County area, to come on and join us. Now let's talk about this a little bit, okay? We know what we're honoring. Let's talk about a little bit of the history. Now first, let's get personal history over here with Susan. Susan, when did you go into the military?
I joined the Army in 1982. My father was a Korean War veteran, Marine Corps, and I knew he served, but I really didn't know too much about what he did in the service. I knew he was a cook, but I always had an inkling to go into the military and see what it was like. So I joined in 1982 and thought I'd give it a try and stayed for 25 years. So
That was a heck of a try.
heck of a try. I couldn't get it right.
Let's talk about just some of the things in particular to you. Now we're gonna give you the history later on, but in your case, here you were. Now by that time, women were already strongly into the military,
Right.
into the combat part of it.
Right.
So when you went in there, now how did you choose what position you wanted to be in?
My particular MOS was a 71 Lima, which is a clerk typist. I was always kind of in the administrative field from high school and right out of high school. So I thought that would be appropriate to try that course. And then I stayed a clerk typist for a while, and then I kind of got a little bit bored with it, so I became a legal clerk. So I delved into the legal field for a little while, and then shortly after that, I went into the MPs, and then towards the end of my career, I was a construction equipment operator.
Wow. Okay, when your training, women's training at that time, were you trained with men?
No, we were all female platoons.
Okay, all female platoons.
Right.
But your training was very similar.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean the idea of firing rifles
Right.
and pistols and
Right.
everything else.
Yeah.
and
Basic
so on.
training was the same for the women as for the men at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then throughout that career, 25 years, how long did you spend in the Middle East?
We spent a year in country, so I was gone for about 15 months for my deployment, and then came home, and I just retired in 2007 from the military, and I always had a passion still for helping veterans or helping service members. So I was looking for a job when I retired from the military. My son was 11 at the time, and I knew I had to put him through college and things to come for him, so I had to go out and get another full-time job. So I was blessed enough to be hired at the Veteran Service Commission in 2007, and I've been there ever since, and it's the greatest job on earth.
Well, we could spend a whole thing talking about the single parent in the military and so on. But we don't have much time right now. We'll come back and do
Okay.
that.
I just want to add to that. We're blessed to have her
Yes,
at
we
Mahoney
are.
County Veterans
Well, you know
Services.
what? Everyone speaks so highly of you. I tell people this all the time. Maybe there was a blessing for me somewhere along the line, but I never had to serve. I was always in between. I always had people who were protecting me. And just like all the rest of us who have never had to leave their families and never have to do things and go and serve in the military and be in danger's way and stuff like this, we're so very, very proud of all of you, and we are so thankful for that. But the situation is that we're here today now to talk about the women. You know, the funny part about it, we were sitting around beforehand, and Leo's did some research. And when Leo does research, watch out. And we're talking about this. And you know what? I'm a history major, and I remember those days. We're talking about back in the Civil War.
Exactly.
And where did
And I have some things here. Women served our country through all periods of American history, whether disguised as male soldiers during the American Revolution, as nurses in World War II, or helicopter pilots in Afghanistan. Yet too often the contribution of women in the uniform has been overlooked even by women themselves. During the Revolutionary War, many women served informally as seamstresses, water bearers, nurses, cooks. Other women fought alongside their husbands. When the Civil War began in 1861, thousands of women volunteered as nurses. Hundreds were dressed as young men and boys. Now, just stop for a minute and visualize that. This is the passion they had for the country, is to be able to put on a clown uniform to go out there and fight alongside their husbands. The women didn't serve formally in the military until Congress established the American Nurses Corps in 1901.
Okay, now here we go. 1901. Prior to that, you had to sneak yourself in, or you were some kind of service person that was helping them.
Right.
But now, for the first time, the Congress decides that we need women, and it was in the nursing corps.
Yeah, and then in World War II, more than 350,000 American women served in uniform, both at home and abroad. and approximately 543 of those got killed in that war, and 84 others they were held as prisoners. Now picture, you're a woman, you're fighting alongside your husband, and God knows maybe 5, 10. I really didn't see anything that I could look up as how long they were held prisoner, but it was quite some time to know. You know, your husband maybe had lost his limb in that war, and he's sitting back there, don't know where his wife is, and she's a prisoner of war. And then it's this other thing I looked up. The role in the war had expanded from the Women's Army Corps to the Women's Air Force service pilots. Now, they drove trucks, repaired airplanes, operated radios, analyzed intelligence, and many, many more things. In 1948, the Women's Armed Service Integration Act was created by the United States. Women remained a small minority of the armed forces population until 1967, when the gender gap lifted, and several laws in 70s and 80 made women have a bigger part. Now, today, there's 22 million veterans in America. 10% of that is women. 2 million are women. And there's probably, I would say, 250,000 serving in Afghanistan as we speak. And I believe in the next 30 years, the number of women serving in the military will rise to 20% of the military. And then there's different numbers for how many have fought, how many were infantry, how many are National Guards. And this is kind of like why Susan and I wanted to take this project on. We want people, because when they look at, and I have one here, I don't know if they can get it or not, of this soldier here, and everybody I ask about this soldier, could they name him or tell me anything about him? And they said no, and I said, well, you can't, because it's a woman. That's Susan in combat. So
nice uniform, by the way.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. So our goal, our mission for this project is that when people come up Mahoning Avenue and they see that women's Veterans Memorial Bridge, it takes them back to give them the respect that they deserve, long overdue deserve. And I'm proud to say, you know, I have my sister veteran here, and her and I played a part in making that happen.
Well, you know, with in the short history, and you'll be doing a longer history when we have our ceremony, the situation very simply is that women were always involved, whether they were official or not.
Right.
They were always
In
involved
some
in
part,
war.
right.
And they also died there. You know, motion pictures are made for entertainment and for things. But if you follow their themes, you'll see the different things that happen. When so many of the nurses who were in triage at the beginning and so on died from bombings and stuff, the women died. You know, I mean, this isn't something that we say, well, they weren't in combat. Oh, yes, they were. They may not be shooting at somebody, but they were in the area that got bombed and so on.
Well, I'll share a little story with you on my personal level. In 1968, the Tet Offensive hit. So probably the bloodiest battle I was ever in, and I witnessed. And being a door gunner, we grab the bodies, we get them and bring them to the Red Cross. Well, in a matter of 2 or 3 days, it was like 100 and some bodies. We're bringing them back and forth. Some lost limbs, some were shot. I'm going to say from Monday to Thursday, I'm just using this as a hypothetical, I got to know the nurse. When I flew in on a Thursday, I was bringing more bottles in, she had gotten killed. So, I mean, their lives were on the line like our life was on the line. You know, there wasn't no like 9 to 5, or there wasn't no line. So, okay, well, you go over here, we stop shooting, take a shower, and go home.
Well, you talked about the fact that even during the Korean War, that's when they were pilots. They'd have to fly those things, and those planes went down, those DC-3s and so on, went down so many times and so on. But then all of a sudden, here we are now, 1967, the gender gap. Now, how long did it take before, I mean, truly, women were in the combat?
Well, I don't know, like Leo said, most of them were nurses or things like that. They had a front line to say. When we were in Iraq and in Afghanistan, there is no front line. It's just an open country. Women are 60 cal gunners. They're in convoys. You know, you get shot at, you're shooting at snipers. Snipers are shooting at you. So there is no front line like it was in the Vietnam War.
Did you have combat women in Vietnam with you?
No, not per se. They were more or less in the rear, but actually there was no rear because
Right.
Yeah,
like
right,
she
no
said,
real. But,
Right.
but the fact is that it was the Middle East that they were,
Right.
even though there was no front line,
Right, right.
they were
Yeah.
in combat.
Exactly.
Sure, right,
Okay.
yeah.
And that's the part that we need to play, us veterans, is to educate the public.
Yes.
A lot of them, they don't know. They don't know the job. They don't know the sacrifice both of her and I made. I mean, maybe it's our fault because we didn't educate them. We just took for granted, maybe got a little attitude because somebody didn't show something towards a veteran.
Yeah.
But that's our fault because now this is what we're attempting to do, and thanks to her and myself, we're going to get out there and whatever it takes, we're going to get the word out. And then after you get educated, you form your opinion. I can live with it. But
Well, the irony is the young people that I used to teach in high school and in college are now, as far as they're concerned, women have always been there.
Yeah.
You know, they
Right.
don't understand the history
Right,
of
right,
that
yeah.
and how it took. I mean, it took a long time to get the leaders of each of the armed forces to accept it.
Yeah,
I mean, it was.
exactly.
But I mean, there was women always. Listen to me. Those of us that are men, women always ran the country. They just didn't get the credit for it.
yeah.
That's all.
But you know, I seen a saying on Facebook the other day, and it applied to teachers, but it could apply to this. Teachers aren't teaching for the income, they're teaching for the outcome.
Yes, I
So
like
we're not teaching because we're going to get a pay out of it.
Right.
We're teaching so that you get educated and the outcome of it turns out, or what we see today when you're in a grocery store and they give you 10% off because you're a veteran, or somebody you go to a restaurant, you eat, and you say, "Where's my check?" and said, somebody picked it up. The respect level is, I am so proud of this country.
But you know, Leo, you brought up a point at the beginning, and it's almost an embarrassment, but I'm going to bring it up again. I was born after it was just about the World War II was starting and so on, and all these different wars. And we honored the guys from World War and the women from World War II. The Korean War, we honored them. Of course, we didn't call it a war. It was a conflict. Until they actually had to change the thing to call it that. But the embarrassment is I was old enough to get into the military and out before Vietnam. So I watched that happening. Now, I'm a pretty liberal guy. But the embarrassment was you went there to fight. You were told to go there. You followed your orders. You did everything you can. And even though I was not an overly thrilled person over the Vietnam War, I honored the fact that you guys and girls were there. When they came back, the embarrassment we owe you for what we did, those active big mouths who, instead of going, if you have a concern over that, don't go to the person who has to do the dirty work, has to go out there and be ready to be shot and this and that. Go to the people who make the decisions if you want to yell at them.
Right.
And we didn't honor you. It's finally happening.
Yeah.
It's slowly but surely the Vietnam. When it came to the Middle East, I think it was the overwhelming way that you were prepared for that.
Right.
Now, we weren't initially. All I can remember is I was a state rep when we first started sending our National Guard units in, and they weren't prepared, uniforms or anything else, until finally things got. But the overwhelming way, you just destroyed that situation. People died, but the fact is the pride was there.
Right,
What
right,
we
yeah.
did.
If we ever do another segment like this, I have an article at home, and off the top of my head, I can't think of who the general was for the Viet Cong. But I read an article where he said, we could never do to the American soldier what the Americans are doing to the American soldier. And they were ready to give up. They were this close into surrendering, but when they seen all the protest against us, and then, you know, a lot of people don't understand the hidden scars of war, the demons that her and I come home with. They don't go away. It's 50-some years. I still have them nightmares and them demons. The only thing is I got some tools and learn how to deal with them. But they don't go away. I mean, I still deal with them. And I think that's what brought this level of respect today up, because we educated them. It's back to what I said again. I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself, but I think the greatest tool, the greatest weapon in the world with anything is education. And if we keep educating, keep doing stuff like this, and keep making them aware, so when they come down that highway and they see them flags, they know that just isn't a piece of cloth on a fence.
Well, you know, if you go through the history, once again, women weren't recognized for their accomplishments and so on. And the fact is, finally, things are happening. And, you know, that picture itself is an education. It's an education. The fact that there you were in harm's way with and so on.
And what's funny was, if she walks in the room, look how beautiful she is. They're not in a million years thinking this girl in uniform is her.
Right.
I mean, if somebody come up and say, Leo, give me that. You're lying. There's no way that you can convince. But like I said again, education. We can educate them that here's the price. Here's the sacrifice you made.
Not to make fun of that, but Leo, if you'd have come home and said, "Boy, I love the look of my first sergeant," people would look a little strange about me.
He still says that.
He still says that.
Well, I mean, we talk about. They think I'm strange now.
Right, yeah. But that's important that you brought that up, because we didn't thank the veterans, the Vietnam veterans, when they came home.
Yes.
And when, you know, just it's a simple handshake and a thank you when you see someone in public with the Vietnam hat on, or a veteran, just say thank you for your service. Means a lot. You don't have to go out of your way and buy them dinner. Just a handshake is well enough.
And how proud they are when they say that.
Absolutely.
And initially, you know, I'll never forget when we started that. If you see a veteran, say thank you for your service and that sort of thing. It was almost embarrassing to some of the military.
Right.
They're finally coming out of their shell saying, you know, just turn around and say thank you.
Well, that's why when you see one veteran, Vietnam veteran, shaking hands with another one, he'll say, welcome home. And the first time I experienced that, even being over there, was in 2000. I was at Wade Park, and I went to the information booth to ask where I had to go. And the guy told me, and then as I started walking, he said, "You're Vietnam?" I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Welcome home." So I'm walking down the hallway with my wife, and I never heard the phrase. And me being a Vietnam veteran, I didn't hear it.
Remember, that was a phrase that was not given to them.
No.
Absolutely.
That was a more 21st century phrase.
Right.
Well, you know, the thing about America is we always wake up, but sometimes it's a little late.
But at least we woke up.
Yeah, we woke
But
up.
I know it's just like any other subject. It's back to what I said: education. That's the greatest tool in the world.
Right.
Is get yourself educated, do your due diligence, and then you'll go about things and you'll look at things differently.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Okay, let's, one more time. You're all invited. There's going to be a great little ceremony that is putting up a sign over a bridge that is named for the women's veterans. It's the Women's Veterans Memorial Bridge. It is Monday, April 16th, 10 a.m. at the Senior Center. Make sure you get there a little ahead of time, and there'll be coffee and some cake and so on for you to prepare yourself, so we could sit and do an honored job of honoring women there. A few days later, hopefully a few days later, or as soon as possible when the weather, because around here we never know what the weather's going to be like.
From my understanding, weather permitting, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's all right.
3 days after this event, so we're looking at Thursday or Friday of that week, weather permitting.
So come to the ceremony, and when you see that sign, you were part of the ceremony that named that bridge. And that bridge, Leo went out, got all kind of replicas of the plaque. I'm surprised he didn't get socks and shirts. But the thing is, it'll be so honored for us here in Austin town, and you will hear some of the great stories, the education, as Leo says, about the women and so on. So once again, be there. Now, I cannot walk out of this show today without talking about it real fast a lot of the other things that are happening around here. So,
Yeah,
what other things are happening?
we've got several projects. We're like that train going down the track. You know, the longer the track, the faster we go. And then I got a partner over here. Believe me, she'll rip that door down.
Did you? I watch how I say this, but do you ever tell him no?
Very few times.
Yeah, very few times.
Just
just
get
say
out of your
no.
office.
No, not right now, but we'll do it later.
Because Leo comes up with these, boy, boom,
Right,
boom,
right,
boom. They're
right.
always,
But I'll be honest with you. I respect her opinion. I love her, and I actually bounce things off of her. So to say, is this doable? And she'll go, yeah, like like the one project we're working on. We'll have 3x5 flags hanging on those bridges. And you take Route 80, you come under 46 pass, that'll have 80 flags on it, 3x5.
I hear that.
And
Yeah, that's coming.
in conjunction with the Mahoning County Veteran Services partnering up. Actually, they're sponsoring it. And then we'll have Mahoning Avenue. There'll be 96 flags on that bridge. And then when you come in from Pennsylvania, there'll be 120 on that, 60 on each side. And that'll give a much more talked about for Austintown and its patriotism. And then one of the other projects that we're working on is going on Interstate Boulevard down by Quaker Steak and Lube. We're working with the commissioners. The trustees approved it, but somehow we have to get the commissioners to approve it, change it to Patriots Boulevard.
yeah, you and Kenny Jacobek have been
Yeah.
working on this so long. Once again, people are talking.
Yeah, well, Ken Jacobek, between me, Ken Jacobek, and Jack Kidd,
Jack Kidd, yeah.
after we do our little thing, then we sit Susan down and say, here's what we need from you. And one of the other projects, real quick, it's called the Purple Star. It's right here in the Austintown High School. It's a room, it's painted purple, and we decided to go in and make it a little military. When I say we, I mean me, Ken Jacobek, and Jack Kidd. And we divided into 5 panels: Army, Navy, Marine, and Air Force. Ray Simon's doing the paintings, and the sponsors bought each panel, and we're going to go in and do that. Now, that's for the kids here in school, that if they miss their dad or mom, they can go in that room and, I guess it's Skype, and talk to them in a war zone on the phone. So it's something that the state of Ohio is supporting. Austintown Fitch was, I invite anybody in the state of Ohio. You have to come to the front of Austintown High School to see what I'm talking about, the display that Ken Jacobek and a young student here put together. One more article we're working on. We're bringing a nonprofit wall in from Vietnam. It has all the names of those that were made the sacrifice in Vietnam, and that'll be here in August, I think around August 14th. We're going to come out of Quaker Steak and Lube, probably 50 or 100 bicycles, escort it to Packard Music Hall, and it'll be on display from probably be set up on a Thursday and probably till Sunday, where you can go and view the wall. Now,
24 hours.
Yeah, 24
It'll be
hours.
open
Now, the
24
beauty
hours.
part about this, if you have what's that on the phone?
Hey,
To get the
talk
apps.
about, I'm older than you. I
Yeah.
don't know what it's on.
Well,
the
you
phone.
can go and say Leo Conley, and it'll tell you what
Oh,
panel
okay.
my name's on.
Oh.
Yeah, and this year has probably, right now I have the folder here, there's about 8 women that are on the wall that were nurses. So these are kind of projects that, back to, again, education. But without Susan and the Mahoning County Veteran Services, and let me add the commissioners over there approving stuff for us to do these projects. It's one thing for Leo to say, I got a project. They do the hard work behind the scenes. And if without Susan pushing and the commissioners approving it, I'm dead. So I'm very happy in this this
Leo,
valley.
when you walk through a door, everybody stands up.
Well, I would hope to think that and I do believe that there is just compassion about what I'm doing, and they want to see it done.
But you see, that's it. Yeah, and we fluctuate with our emotions in this country. Right now, it's so sky high for veterans. Something that should have been done and should be universal. And hopefully, it's going to stay on for the longest time. You know what? This is going to be terrible. But I got to talk to Susan a second here. You know what? We're sitting here. We're talking about all this work that you're doing with all the quote, publicity, good publicity type of things, and for the education of the people. But there's so many other services that you have in your from your department.
Right.
And what always fascinated me is the younger people who are coming out, well, all over the country. volunteerism is pretty dead. But the fact of the matter is, those who served don't understand how important it is to join their different organizations and so on.
Right.
And there's services that are provided for them for any number of different issues, problems that they have, financial, medical, and so on. Now, they pick up the phone and call your office, and
They
you can
can
leave
call, right, yeah, they can call our office. We can go out to different organizations and speak as we normally do. But our phone number's 330-740-2450. If you have a question, if there's a parent of a veteran, or if there's a father or a mother, you know, you have older generation of people going into assisted living and nursing homes, we can help with benefits with that, as well as county benefits that are provided by our office as well. And speaking of volunteering, Memorial Day's coming up. We decorate all the graves in Mahoning County. The Veteran Service Commission purchases flags every year for every cemetery in Mahoning County. So if there's anybody that would like to volunteer their time, it doesn't have to be a lot of time, half hour, an hour, to help recognize those veterans that are deceased and laying to rest in our cemetery. So they can call our office, or better yet, they can call Leo. And
Everybody has Leo's
right,
number.
everybody has Leo's
But
number.
might I add, when we take the flags off the grave, we usually dig a hole and do a little ceremony. But if you have a church or some organization that wants those flags, you're more. We encourage you to take them. A lot of churches will take them and
What
pass
is
them
that
out.
they call it? Because we do it in our in that Wick Circle. We're calling it, we're in Veteran Circle, and they burn the flags and so on. You know, it always fascinated me, because I can remember one person in my class saying, "Wasn't that disrespectful to burn your flag?" He says, "No."
No, it's
It
well,
is the
there's a
most
ceremony
respectful.
with it.
Right.
It just isn't. You just throw it down.
Right.
But
And then you bury the ashes. You know, it's
But with
like a
Susan
body.
and the Mahoning County Veteran Service Commissioners and the outfit would love to see is churches or schools or somebody, please bring your Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts over, take those flags and get some use out of them.
Use out of it.
Yeah,
All right.
I would love to see that, because, I mean, I'm like you, I'm really not wild about it being burnt, but there is a proper ceremony.
Right.
to it.
Well, especially when they are destroyed in many
Yeah.
cases.
Right,
and
right.
been
Or
sent.
if you do have flags that are no longer serviceable, they can drop them off at our office, and we have a donation box out front of our office for unserviceable flags, and we will make sure that they are disposed of in the proper manner, so they can drop those off as well.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here are our Executive Director of the Mahoning County Veteran Services Commission, Susan Krajcek, and the ceremonial commander of the veterans of the Mahoning Valley, Leo Conley, dealing with a situation and a ceremony that's coming to here to Austintown. And all you Austonians out there, come on out, come on and be there on April the 16th, 10 o'clock at the Seniors Center, so that we can honor the women who have served us in the military from day one of this country to now. So,
Thank you for
Absolutely.
having us here.
my
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
You two are coming back.
Okay.
This is too much fun. And thank you, Austintown, for watching. We'll see you on April 16th at 10 o'clock at the Senior Center.
In association with Austintown Local Schools and Austintown Township.